This is how close we get to nature these days. I think you're about 6 feet away from me, my man. And this is we're going to do the review of the last, what do we say, 15 episodes or so? Look at that. Bob Ross, eat your heart out. So what we thought we'd do is do a year in review. And so Allie and I guess not exactly.
We have to keep in whatever. It was like a tiny little fawn, but jumping.
So if there's something that happens behind us here, we have only a little tiny little window on our GoPro to actually respond to this. And so here's the plan, is we're up here atop a Hurricane Ridge. It's absolutely stunning, and we're right on the edge of the no-go zone. So basically everything behind us right now is Olympic, national forests available to hike for miles and miles. But we also have a lot of wild animals in and around us. Obviously, about 10 feet away is a deer. Mm-hmm. There were 2 bear cubs a few miles back, and now we have bounding Bambis behind us. So, this may be an episode about previous episodes. It may be us running for our lives. We don't know. So, and Allie's about ready to roll down the mountain. So the plan is we're going to start from episode 1 of Olympic Strange Days and dive in a little bit deeper, because I haven't had a time to really go into all the comments and check out what everything and everybody has to say about, even before Allie hopped on board here with OSD. But like I said, some of these people we've gotten to get to know since we've moved kind of to their community and been out in the field with them a couple of times and still are planning stuff ahead. And some, like I said, is just a one and done. And so we're just going to start from the very beginning with the episode 1 with our good new friend here, Alex Liberato, who is in an episode called Abduction, UFOs, and Hidden Events. You've had a chance to meet Alex and get to know him a little bit.
Yeah.
You've seen the episode.
Yes.
Any first impressions here before we get into the comments?
I really enjoyed listening to his story, and then it was neat. Didn't he end up finding out that, his dad also had experiences, and they were able to kind of connect on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So him and his dad were both abductees. It's kind of important to the story that Alex grew up Mormon, because it kind of limited his availability to talk to his dad about his whole, life experience 100% with transparency. But once he did, he found out that not only was Alex having strange UFO encounters, his dad at a donut shop basically confided to him, "Oh my gosh, don't feel so alone. I've been abducted since X amount of years." And so father and son over maple bars are bonding over abductions. It's crazy.
It's a wild story. Yeah.
So what did people have to say about this here?
So, someone with the handle God's Hand Bigfoot of Alabama 4686. They said, "Congratulations on the launch of the new show. I think Alex is a brave guy to go on camera with this. People that haven't had exposure to unnatural events in their life can't fully understand what it's like. In my case, and I think others as well, it makes you wonder why we weren't formally taught about aliens, Sasquatch, and a host of other topics during our educational years." That would be awesome. I look forward to the second interview with Alex and the future of your show.
And you probably will hear more from Alex in the show. He's got his own clothing line that he's launching, possibly being kind of curtailed by talent scouts and production agencies to talk about this on cable network. And I don't know where that's going right now. I think that's because of you guys watching and sharing the videos along the way here. And so for the first episode out of the gate, it's hard, Allie, figuring out if these people will open up to you on camera. But as you can see in the episode, Alex and I meet at the bar. We have a drink. And then I kind of say, "Hey, can we talk about this out in the city?" And, maybe walk around town where other people are hearing your story as they're walking by you. That takes a lot of like
GoPro in your face.
guts, right?
Yeah.
A certain amount of courage. And so that was really kind of the beginning of the whole walk and talk dynamic, talking about the supernatural. It followed up by an episode which you guys never saw, where Alex's dad actually joined us on Restream at the Anchor Tavern for a couple hours. Alex, myself, Maureen Morgan, UFO aficionado extraordinaire, used to work hand in hand with MUFON, but now has gone rogue. She actually was in the bar with us, kind of interviewing Alex, going through the step-by-steps of what an actual abduction questionnaire from, the playbook of what abductions look like, and questioned Alex, not in a way as a skeptic, but just to say, hey, this really happened to you and your dad. So that was really cool to be a part of.
Yeah.
That's some feedback on that one. That one actually got quite a bit of views. That got me inspired to keep on going on, I guess. You fed the monster here, so who better to talk to than Rich Germeau, who was working hand in hand with the La Push PD out near Forks, Washington, home of vampires, werewolves, and Sasquatch. That's where Rich was a witness as a cop on duty. He was also working for SWAT and a detective at that time, and started the Olympic Project. And now Rich is a close personal friend. And he's got some other theories, though, including things about ancient civilizations and hidden truths as it relates to a concept called Tartaria. And this is what the episode was beginning about. Now, this literally is just the tip of the iceberg and part one. You've gotten to know Rich as well here along the way. So the title of this episode is City Secrets Impossible Builds Tartaria. What do you know about Tartaria, Allie? We haven't really gotten into that.
Yeah. This is the one episode I think I haven't seen, and it's the one topic I don't think I've gone down a rabbit hole in, so actually I don't know much about it.
Well, quick and short is that pretty much the cities were discovered and not built, and basically a bunch of foreigners took credit for ancient civilizations. Some of them were torn down and burned. Some of them, apparently, especially when you get into the World's Fair, if you look back into the late 1800s especially, and whole cities were erected in a matter of like a year and a half, and then they were suddenly torn down for these things they would call World's Fairs. If you look into the Chicago Fire, all these amazing feats and masterpieces of master masons and master builders don't seem to make a whole lot of sense as far as the timeline they say that they're building. But then you get into like ancient tech, right? Like free energy is one of the big ones at Tartaria. And that's mainly why they tore these buildings down, is because it became basically classified science.
Okay.
And that's what Rich is digging into here in Port Townsend, Port Angeles, and all over. If you go to a guy named John Levi, go look up John Levi, Johnlevi. He's a homespun Tartarian researcher, and you can find him on YouTube. I think he does a show once a week. And so Rich's concept is can we prove that any of these buildings here don't have building plans and were never erected in the 1800s, like Manresa Castle, like the courthouse, like the post office? And were those buildings, courthouses and post offices, were they private homes? Like Manresa Castle, you'd never think is anybody's home.
Yeah.
But it was. So was the post office? And if so, was it erected like in the 1700s? Was it here before, the First Nations people? This is the concept of Tartaria.
So, Tobin Rich, great stuff. I'm sure you know there are giants connected to the Tartarian story as well. Man, I wish I was on the West Coast so we could hang and discuss. By the way, all of the FOB content is fantastic. You guys are really doing this all the right way.
So the FOB is a flash of beauty content. Taking our time as much as possible. In fact, in future episodes, just to respond to that briefly, if we don't have a weekly episode, it's because we don't want to just put out an episode to put out an episode. And so this is us basically saying, hey, to get out the right content, the right interviews here, it may not happen every Thursday or Friday. And as you can see, that's kind of the case here with some of the Flash of Beauty content. It's just all about getting the right shot and not just putting out a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
So what the mound builders of old and the giants are all throughout history. I'm not an expert on the Nephilim or the giants of old, but on our way here, we were joking about the Marble Mount footage and how it looks like a Sasquatch apparently walking down the Marble Mount. You can type it in, find it yourself. It's just
Classic.
a profile shot of a giant walking down a mountain. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of footage on YouTube of supposed giants coming out of caves, walking around, doing push-ups. I've seen one guy showing a picture of a Sasquatch like doing diamond crunches. Like, what the hell is happening?
Okay, and then Yucca_man. Can you please do a whole show on these chemtrails so we can get Trump to hold these pilots and the people paying them accountable? It's ridiculous. It was so cool to see him talk about it while he's telling a story. They spray every day. I'm in Southern California. They turn around and spray some more, turn around, spray some more. The same plane. Godspeed. Love your show.
So they are spraying here. Like, it's not me believing it. You go listen to Deputy John Brennan. I think he was the head of the CIA, and he calls it something different than cloud seeding. It's like aerosol injection, and it's all about weather modification. It's a thing that I didn't notice as a kid, is these milky white trails crisscrossing. Like we saw in Oak Ridge, you got incredible video footage of it.
Put that in.
Yeah, just like I think we did put some in the Mima Mounds footage along with the document. The reason I did that is not connected to the mound builders, but it is connected to the Olympic Peninsula because the Olympics is filled with nonsense spraying. We see it all the time here, and you know that they're doing it because of the fact that it suddenly starts raining and it hasn't been forecast, and it comes across the Pacific as these crisscross lines, and they open up and envelop the entire sky into like a milky wash. Yeah. I could go on and on with it. So
maybe we should do one, or make it a part.
Yeah, we will do one.
Next episode.
Oh yeah.
Episode 3.
Pete Orbea, team member of Olympic Peninsula Paranormal Society, or OPS, and Mary Bethune, I think she's one of the founding members of the whole thing here, showed up, in episode 3, I believe it was, talking specifically about not only the paranormal, but talking about hauntings. Now, this was your wheelhouse when I met you. Like, you had all the gizmos and gadgets. You have a pelican case, which is a sure sign that you have a problem. She has a black pelican case. So she had the night vision, the EMF detector. She knew about the Estes method.
Thermal.
Yeah. So what was did you have a background in going into haunted houses? Because this is what this episode is about going in a haunted house and ghost hunting.
My plan was to do it more. I didn't used to have time really for it when I was working my job before, but I mean, I stayed at the Grand Geyser in Baker City on a birthday trip, and went to the haunted old mining dredge out there in Drain. So it was like a hobby when I had time at the right place.
So actually, Allie has one of the most incredible photos from, what's the city called? Baker City?
That one's from the haunted mining dredge.
This photo is crazy. Can we insert it here? Mm-hmm. Okay. Like, the ops team from Olympic Peninsula brings it, along with Pete, Orbea, but Allie has an incredible shot that I've only seen once, really, and I'd like to see it again. I want you guys to all see it. And it looks like a little being kind of standing behind the dreaded dredge.
Mm-hmm. It looks like a man in a trench coat, like Matrix-style trench coat.
FLIR or night vision?
It's the thermal, yeah.
Okay. So you can see, is it a cold signature?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the team at Ops, I remember like it was yesterday, Allie, we met like at 11 o'clock in the opening foyer of what's called the Walker Ames House in the little town of Port Gamble, a city-owned town and run by who people call Mayor Pete Orbea, who's kind of like the town manager and the town psychic. And he left us the keys to go to this incredibly sought-after haunted 4-story Victorian house and basically said, ghost hunt, do your thing. And we did. Now, did we have a bunch of stuff happen? No, the point is to talk to the team and see what stuff has happened in around the Walker Ames house, what the story is, because it's a part of the Olympic Peninsula history. It's like one of the most sought after places to go do a ghost tour. So if you want to see really cool architecture and look at the team investing a lot of time and research and money trying to capture proof, this is the episode for you. Okay, what kind of comments?
Okay. I still want you to take me there, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I got to take it there.
At Oma-N9N. I so admire the mantis beings. They are so high vibe. I've only seen them multidimensionally. Would love to meet one in the dimension. Great podcast. Gratitude, brother. I chose that one because I've never heard anybody really refer to them as like high vibrational beings.
High vibrational, I don't know about that. What Mary Bethune described, because it seems like it's not connected at all to ghost hunting or haunted houses, but it's a part of her story. And it got her interested in other stuff, like what's going on in the world of people that are abducted, what's going on with a guy like Alex, who didn't necessarily see mantids. He described like tall gray or tall whites, Nordic types, and little gray types. But the mantid things refuses to go away. I've known people in my life that have touched these beings before and squeezed them. I've known people that swear that they are like on the upper echelon. Like if there's a hierarchy of power structure and rank, the mantids are like right up there, right? Like the Nordics seem to be like with them. You know what I mean? But the Greys seem like drones. I don't know.
It's like the Greys are their little minions.
I don't know. Like, what would you do if you saw a mantid?
Well, if it looked just like an insect, I wonder if it'd be less creepy than a gray alien or a tall white, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be freaky to see a giant insect, but at least your brain can kind of comprehend that visual a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But why in the world are there praying mantises that look like mantids? What is up with praying mantises? Like George Knapp, I don't know if people know this, right? Like investigative journalists who uncovered and released Bob Lazar in Area 51 to the world in the 80s. He collects praying mantises. He has a farm of them because he got obsessed with the articulation of their weird little forked hands, their crazy eyes, the fact that they kind of walk up to you and they'll fight you. Like if you found one in the park like I did, it'll kind of like raise its little paws up like, hey, I'm coming at you, man. So I don't know if they're even bugs. Like there's something else going on with praying mantises. All right, what else we got?
So at Richard-CF8CE says, you people are inviting trouble and you know better.
Yeah. And I remember telling Allie to grab that comment because I think it's an important comment to put inside here. Listen, I don't claim to know what we're looking into. There's certain, if you're a biblical person, certain scriptures, it says do not communicate with the dead. Now, is that because of the trickster element? You don't ultimately know if the little child laughing and teasing you down in the basement is the little child, right? So the trickster thing is all part of First Nations lore. It gets into Coco Pele as well, right? Like down in the southern region of the United States. Everywhere you go is the trickster element. And that's a part of the Bigfoot world. So I think it's just important to remember that when you're on location. Yeah. Not everything is love and light. And I've always thought that. So I think more comments like that for the people that are over positive about every experience being only benign.
Sure. Yeah, it's good to have a balance and be ready to acknowledge that something might not be what you want to get into. But I also don't believe in living in fear. I think that that's how we find out more information about these topics is by, I don't feel any sense of danger.
I think part of it too is like a power struggle from those in power to scare you to not look into your innate ability to connect with stuff. Now that goes against what my grandmother would have definitely said, as like an old Baptist, like, what are you talking about, dear child? But turns out that some of this stuff seems incredibly neutral. Like there's this weird neutral area where magic exists. Okay, what's next?
Episode 4.
Okay, somewhere around that road. Dave Kuhn, I recognize old Dave Kuhn. Episode entitled Targeted and the Visitors. So, Allie, you've had a chance to meet Dave Kuhn. He was at Strange Days where you guys... It's actually the first time I think I went camping with the guy. And we did this interview significantly after our first Olympic Strange Days. Remember anything about that episode?
Yeah. You captured a pretty wild EVP.
Totally unexpected. Like, this was an episode about Dave Kuhn being targeted by the Greys and surgically implanted somewhere behind his ear. I believe it was the left side. And talking about those experiences along the way and other crazy stuff. And as we're filming, we get, to me, a very clear disembodied voice. As my little dog Cooper is running away near a pond, we hear this, is it like a female voice? Like it's a wispy, kind of neutral sounding voice that says, water. It's kind of graspy, like it's grasping for energy to make it sound.
It's very clear.
What did people have to say?
Corey M. Hanna, make longer videos. We love it.
So longer videos. So yes, like Joe Rogan is right. Like a 3-hour structure can work. But, then again, like we made part 2 of a future episode we're going to talk about here in a minute, Shaman Shack. And those are like 45 minutes a piece. And then Al Moon Lab coming up, that's 2-parter. So that's over an hour and a half. So I don't know. We're just kind of like feeling out what we can do, what we want to do, what we're going to be punished for by the algorithms on YouTube if we break the algorithmic, keys to success. So any comments on longer videos?
I think it would be great to have people chime in and let us know what they think. Like, is our time, or, the amount of time we put in for the videos now, like around roughly a half hour, right? If that's good, or if more people want longer videos.
Share them. Like, if the more you watch them, the more you share them, the more you comment, all that stuff, like you hear it all the time. Well, because the more you do that, the longer videos we can make, right? It gives us access to like go farther places. But that's the key component. Next episode here, Allie, Olympic Strange Days, Hoax or Proof. Pretty controversial episode. That footage sat on my phone since the beginning of COVID, like 2019, 2020. And it came via a guy by the name of Nate and a friend of his along the way. And they basically said, hey, we have some footage. We'll airdrop it to you so you can have it too. We just ask that you don't share it. On social media. So for over 5 years, I sat on this footage till one day I got a hold of one of the guys and I said, I think it's time. Like, with AI coming out and this footage looking super authentic. And so in short, what it shows is night vision, and we know that now, night vision footage from an elevated spot, either drone or helicopter, turns out most likely helicopter, filming a subject walking very easy through an environment kind of like we're looking at behind the camera here, Allie. Like just...
Pretty sick.
Yeah, like super comfortable taking large steps, not like a costume. And so I got permission to leak it. And once I did leak it, the whole goal was to find out, is this real or is it fake? It turns out, according to Cliff Barrickman, who helped research this for me, it's a recreation from Unsolved Mysteries, not with Robert Stack and the raincoat. No. After the 1980s, there was a host that filled in for him by the actor's name, Dennis Farina was his name. And so people that were looking for this image to reverse screenshot the still of like Bigfoot walking, they couldn't find it. I couldn't find it because it was a cutting room floor shot that they didn't use for the show. And so it's kind of like this elaborate, it's an elaborate story. And I'm still like 98% convinced that this was a recreation. Mm-hmm. I was 99%, but now I'm 98% that this is a recreation. I'm still reserving that 2% that it's real because I've gone back and watched it and it's so good. Like to me, it's so smooth the way it's walking, and it doesn't adjust its shoulders, and it's taking a huge step at a period. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah. Where are you at with it?
I mean, I remember you actually showing this to me at the Sasquatch Festival, like the first time we met, and I thought it was real.
I don't know. To me, what are the comments on that?
At Richard Pichette, 4380, compelling. If it's a hoax, it was really well done. Across rough terrain in a suit, a trip. Stumble or fall while wearing a suit would be expected. To pull it off so flawlessly while moving so quickly, the route would need some serious forethought. Also, the heat signature spreads from shoulders and neck down to the back of the legs. If it was a suit, I would think it would be toward the top as heat rises. I'm no expert, but this is very interesting. Anyone dismissive of this footage is discrediting themselves. I'm standing by. If the creator is outed, I'll be surprised. Something tells me this is of military origin and was leaked.
Yeah, so if you watch this episode and you'll learn what season, what episode it was, and how to find it. Now, according to a source from Skinwalker Ranch, a friend of ours that looked at the footage, he builds FLIR units. Dave, can't remember his last name. Anyway, he said it's not FLIR. He said it's not thermal. He says it can't be, and he said it's actually night vision, infrared. So there wouldn't be a heat signature with infrared. It would be a different calibration of what you're looking at. So it's confusing because of the coloration, because it's black and white. And it's also, Allie, a second generation shot of like a phone filming a screen. So it's not the original. And so where is the original? Well, according to Cliff, the original footage is in Wilsonville, Oregon, outside of Portland, Oregon, at FLIR Incorporated, where the company was headquartered. And in the early 90s, FLIR was just starting out. And so they were hired by the team, by the production crew for Unsolved Mysteries to go up in a helicopter and shoot an episode with a guy in a suit. So, I don't know, 98%. What else?
At Doc Mom Cat, optical physicist here. This footage is definitely not thermal, which is still infrared, by the way. I would say it is recorded in either the near IR or MWIR, which is mid-wave IR. Although I think it's the MWIR, and it's a hoax. If you look at the figure around the time it looks back and up at whatever is recording it, the lines across the body, i.e. what looks like shadows, are more likely caused by seams between different sections of the costume. These different sections would have different reflectivities, depending on the material, causing the different patterns of light and dark across the body. Just my 2 cents worth.
That sounds like the guy I talked to over the phone is pretty much the same description of what he was describing. So, you know, given the fact that somebody saw the supposed costume on the set on Mount Hood that day, and there's a similar color shot of someone walking the same route, not in a costume, just an actor.
Yeah.
I tend to think that it's case closed, 98%. All right, what do we got here, Allie? Okay, episode 6, entitled Them, The Gaze of the Greys with Lee Strauss. You haven't had a chance to meet Lee Strauss, have you?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I haven't.
Well, actually, Lee got a hold of me today and asked if we could go out this weekend. And I told him we couldn't because we're busy. But someday, Lee. So Lee reached out to me through his podcast and was interviewing me about everything that happened back in 2018 in Cottage Grove. Just so happens that Lee has his own story beyond the world of Sasquatch. He's also an abductee, an incredible encounter. And literally right outside of Quilcene, we're up at a lake. I don't really want to say the name of the lake, but you know the name of the lake. And we need to shoot another episode out that way just because this lake may have some crazy stuff going on after hours. But anyway, I digress. Lee has an incredible story about his abduction and what exactly happened to him years later. It wasn't so great on his marriage, and there was some physical altercations, I believe, as well with the Greys. And it's a pretty intense encounter. What did people have to say about it?
At Parker Alt 2607, my sympathies to Lee for all of the suffering he went through because of his abduction experience. I'm curious why he felt that the existence of this phenomenon is incompatible with his Catholic upbringing. I went the opposite direction. I was raised Christian, spent most of my life as an atheist, and an interest in cryptids led to an interest in the supernatural, which eventually led me back to God. The way I see it, aliens and Bigfoot aren't in the Bible, but neither is Australia, so their omission doesn't mean they don't exist.
My comment about this is that there's similarities in the beginning, but the part here where Australia didn't exist in Scripture, I think that these things existed during like the pre-flood time. They must have. Like, these are the giants of old to some degree, especially if we're speaking only about Bigfoot. But Australia came along. I mean, did Australia exist? Of course it did. It just had a different name. Like, it was a part of Pangea. And so it was this one giant continent that existed. So there's a bit of, I don't know. To me, that's a distraction. Okay, what other episodes we got?
Episode 7.
Solved.
Revealed, concealed.
With Michael Beaves, the Beaver. So you know Michael Beavers.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've met once. I know more of him than I know him personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Michael Beaver is a known quantity from your old hometown, my old hometown. And it was really just a happenstance that Michael and I had met when I lived down there, because I saw a post that he put on Facebook of 3 stars that weren't stars. Like, they were hovering over Pleasant Hill, Oregon, and he lived in Springfield, Oregon. So he's looking southeast and filming off his balcony this giant, what appeared to be like triangle floating in the sky. And I think it kind of rotated and maybe glided. It was big. And so I wanted to interview him. And that's how we met, is just me going to his house. And now he's like into Bigfoot. But this episode is different than any other episode we got. A, because it's not in the Olympics, but it had to be told because Michael Beavers is a part of like this Al Moon story here. And we talk about what happened to him. He goes Bigfooting for the first time at my behest to go to the area of the Al Moon and Proxy with his daughter, and discovers someone who is unalived. And it's a very graphic video. I've seen the video. I don't think... Did you see the video?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So the video exists. Anyway, when you find someone who's unalived and you're actually out there Bigfooting, you have to let people know, immediately, because A, your squatching trip has totally stopped, and now you have to get the cops and the detectives involved. And so we talked about that on camera, like, hey, you went Bigfooting and ended up finding someone unalived. And it's a very tragic story. I don't mean to make light of it, but it was totally off guard. It was totally alien in nature as far as like him discovering something like that. So
yeah.
Anyway, very bizarre.
There's a lot more scary things in the woods outside of Bigfoot.
And then also, in that footage, I mentioned to Beavers that there's UFO footage from Springfield, Oregon, that I don't know he'd seen, and we include that footage in there. We inserted a clip just to show Michael Beavers there's other UFO footage from Springfield. It's some of the best UFO footage ever captured, period. Like, I don't know what that footage is, but it's a ball of plasma that separates, and hovers for a long period of time. Like, it's a long clip. And then it has one of the 5 observables where it comes back together and it takes off at breakneck speed. And now I've had people say, well, that's a drone. And I'm like, they're blaming the camera optics on it separating, but it doesn't explain like how it goes, where it goes. Anyway, what do you think?
Doesn't it have a tail at some point?
Yes, it's got a giant like pink purple tail.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a drone at all.
All right, what else did they say?
Okay, so I think this is somebody commenting on that footage.
Okay.
At Susan G7412, that UFO looked like plasma the way it changed shape. So,
it does.
Yeah.
And so to blame the camera optics of this guy's new phone, and I'm sorry, the witness, his name's escaping me right now, but you can hear him and his girlfriend talk as I'm kind of interviewing this witness about the footage. And it's really interesting, the conversation that we have. And so I don't know. Let me know what you think below what's going on with that. All right, what else?
Then we have episode 8.
Oh, yeah. Howl, disclosure of the wolfman. Allie, you were... Now, was this your first time going out with me, talking to a witness?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
And the way this interview came up is so crazy. Like, I had recently rented a cabin that had no real bed. Like, it had an IKEA bed in the cabin, but it was just like, oh my gosh, this thing is kind of a mess. And something popped up, like on Bainbridge Island, I'll say it. And it was like an estate sale for like a really cheap, awesome queen-size bed. And so as I'm loading that on top of the roof of my truck, we start talking about the bumper stickers on the back. And he goes, well, I've got a friend that didn't see a Bigfoot, but he saw this upright dog and it looked like Anubis or something like that. And I was just like, what? Like, records get what? Anyway, I gave him my card and I thought I'd never hear anything about it again. Well, like a week later, I got a call from the witness. And the next day, you were coming up and I was just like, hey, we got an interview. Are you okay with like dropping your bags off at the house and us going to interview this dogman witness who would not go on camera, but has this amazing story? What was your impressions?
He seemed excited to be able to share it with people who would possibly consider what he saw to be real or like just be more open-minded. But you could tell that he was freaked out by it.
Oh, yeah. Because talking to him over coffee was super relaxing and fun and kind of lighthearted. But the minute he had to kind of like go on camera, like behind the camera, not on camera, and talk about it, like this is the first time he ever went and talked about it to the public. Like, maybe he did a podcast, like audio-wise, I don't remember. But yeah, he was visibly shaken.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean...
Look at the deer suckling.
I know. All right, so the 2 comments we've got, at Spoonman365, where you find Bigfoot, you'll find Dogman. Ohio is filled with both, and they live in the same ecosystems. Perfect example is Cuyahoga Valley National Park.
Oh.
I probably said that wrong. Has an abundance of both. They exist, they are real, they are everywhere. It does seem like some people tend to think that they're in the same areas or coexisting.
Well, yeah, we got that Northwest tracker, and she's been telling us that there's a relationship between basically werewolves and Sasquatch that are actively trading in certain areas and leaving markers. I don't know where I'm at with that, but I know that these people are freaked out beyond related to what they've seen. So listen to an interview of this guy and a guy named Matt Emch, E-M-C-H. And, if you're a skeptic, I don't think you'll be a skeptic after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, prior to hearing this guy's interview and that Matt Emch story, I never gave, like, Dogman content really much of a chance. Like, I just didn't click on it. I didn't think about it.
Missing out.
After hearing both of those interviews, I tend to think maybe they're out there. Okay, so the other comment is at Lena Scribe. Lena Scribe. Please go to the place, but do make sure Mark is comfortable the whole time. It will take some huge bravery to return to the location of an experience like that. There is a policeman who had a terrifying experience in the LBL where a fireman he'd been chatting with was killed that same night. Definitely worth looking it up. He was noticeably terrified upon returning. Sorry, I don't have the references.
Remind us where the LBL is,
Yeah.
too, in the comments.
If anybody knows.
Yeah.
But we'd asked people in that episode of whether or not we should go back to that place, which we still want to. We just gotta
It's just the finances
Yeah.
of going down there with a team of I think he didn't want to go down there without 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't want anybody to do it for free. And then, Allie and I have our sights set on a research vehicle along the way that we can stay in long term, and using Starlink in the research vehicle and keeping this guy, safe and sound and totally anonymous without going on camera. Logistically, it would just take a team effort. So it's possible. We don't know when it's going to happen, but I still keep it in the back of my mind. We're going to be in the Redwoods. This, by the way, this happened in the Redwoods near the Smith River. Okay, what else?
Episode 9, Mima Mounds.
Oh, now this this is actually Allie's second video, but first video solo with me out filming landscapes. And so the Mima Mounds was kind of just a decision that we made after a conference, hey, on our way back here, let's swing by this mysterious grassy land off the side of the freeway where all these 40-foot mounds exist. And I was trying to describe it to you as just you're going to want to see this place. I don't know if aliens did this. I don't know if a giant gopher did it. I don't know what did this. But what was when you saw it, what did you think of this place?
Talking about it, the mounds or things like that reminded me of in Ohio, they have the serpent mounds, but that looks more purposeful. And these are just so random looking. They kind of seem more organic or natural, but they don't really make sense as to how they came to be. So, I don't know.
And certainly there's a feeling or a vibe you get there when you're on site, because it's kind of you feel a little bit off, maybe even dizzy. And then you don't know if it's psychosomatic.
Yeah.
And, but I'd seen people go there in ritual robes, showing up and full on Celtic pagan robe, and throwing a rock in the middle of the field out of their leather satchel, and then walking back and to their car and driving away. I don't know what that experience was, but tells me that this is probably a power spot, for good or bad, kind of like a Stonehenge or the Serpent Mound.
Yeah. I do remember my feet feeling heavy sometimes there. I think we talked about that when we were at Trollhaven.
Oh, the Trollhaven. We'll talk about that in a minute.
That was pretty awesome, Trollhaven. Okay. So at BMO_creative, walking in a mound builder graveyard is one thing, but walking on them is a def no bueno. Oh wait, the Smithsonian already took all the bodies, relics, and bones out. Never mind.
I appreciate that comment. That's a comment I would probably make if I didn't have all the facts, and we don't know what built those mounds. And it doesn't appear there's bodies under those at all, because there's no excavation on them. They're all perfectly preserved, and they have this weird moss on them that is super hard and crunchy, like a Brillo pad in the summer.
Yeah.
But in the winter months, it's the most beautiful, cushiony, soft, moss. You could sea foam or something like that. So it's weird. I don't think there's been any bodies discovered in any of those mounds at all. Maybe farming. I think that there's some theories that they were farming on top of these mounds, possibly, and using them as flood zones where they would plant on top of these mounds. So just think like
Yeah.
rice fields or something like that. Like, what is that called? Terracing? Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. And then at David Fried Line 7525, I wish you had a tri-field meter or a magnetometer?
Oh, magnometer?
What? Magnet? Oh, they spelled it wrong. Or a metal detector. Something. Tobe dropped the mound. Just curious if a compass would act strange. Anything. We need more data. LOL, just kidding. Would have been cool. Peace out.
I agree.
We should have brought our EMF detector at the very least.
We're going back with EMFs, and we're going to bring our tri-field meters and all that.
Yeah.
All right, what else?
So now we've got Tanit.
Okay, that seems like literally it was just a couple weeks ago that we filmed that Tanit.
Yeah.
Arrival of the Black Demon. So, to experience this episode, and Allie, it's her first like on-camera experience at this magical place. We open up the show called Trollhaven in the little town of Gardner out here in the Olympic Peninsula. What do you think of the episode? Because just in short, we're looking for like this effigy that was written out in the sand. We're trying to see if this effigy actually was brought to life, if this effigy was brought to life by someone just kind of manifesting the shape of this female goddess, right, called Tanit. And so it's a little deeper than that, with someone who had a weird sighting of what they called a black demon in proximity to where we found this drawing. But then we end up like in this place that seemed totally appropriate to talk about this, a place called Trollhaven. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, we just chose that on a whim. It was along the way to the Elwha, and you're like, oh, you got to see this place, and then it ended up being like a whole like exhibit shrine dedicated to fertility symbols.
Yeah.
And that's what like Tanit
and
partially
dragons
represents.
Yeah.
And dragons, which comes back.
Right.
Yeah.
Old school carvings of like giant gnomes and trolls and dragons and just the craziest stuff, like a lizard creature and like a goat man kind of thing, and this giant castle. It's wild, and hardly anybody knows about it. But if you want to get married and you want us to shoot your video, you can go to Gardner, to Trollhaven, and tie the knot.
Okay, and then Greg Olson 5532 says Tanit, Ishtar, Tammuz, Diana, Isis, Statue of Liberty, Mary, Succubus, they are all related / the same, with different names in different cultures / countries. Men revere women so easily manipulated by them. They oppose Father God for the heart of men, fishers of men's souls.
Ooh, that last little part there. Well, men are easily led by women. That is true. That's the siren's tale.
I was going to say, you forgot sirens.
Yeah, sirens for sure. So, for that reason, I listen to her very carefully, but not 100%.
Oh my God. I still think, it just got so quiet. The wind went down.
I heard like a thundery sound. Did you? And then it got really quiet.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I heard like, whoa.
Wow.
It actually got kind of quiet and warm. All right, where are we at, Ellie? Oh, man. What a thumbnail. What's the name of this episode?
Episode 11, Shaman Shack Part 1.
Shaman Shack Part 1, and there was a Part 2. It was like a 48-hour expedition at some friends of ours' house, and they have like a wellness center for people that are open-minded, red-pilled as you were. And it's called the Shaman Shack. And we stayed there, and they had guests that arrived. Todd Standing showed up from Canada. And so Todd Standing comes to the United States once a year for like a week with his expeditioners, which are paid members that love and respect Todd Standing's work to the degree that they pay Todd to have an experience. Now Todd Standing says that he guarantees an experience or like a sighting with them. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
So these guys come with full expectations that they're going to go on an expedition out in the Olympic Peninsula and have a sighting of a Sasquatch or an experience. I did not know that, really, at all. I had heard that Todd Standing may be in town, but I didn't know that I was choosing the weekend to meet the guy. So we did, like the first time now. Todd Standing, we've heard a lot about him. Very, I guess we call him controversial Todd Standing. And I think he embraces that title.
Yeah.
To a degree. So what was your experience?
I mean, it just seemed like this was maybe one of the most, we didn't think it was going to be one of our most controversial episodes, but in the comments it kind of proved to be that, it seemed like. I admire that he's very dedicated. He gives it like 110%. And it was an interesting surprise. Yeah.
I knew it'd be controversial. Of course, I knew it'd be controversial. That's not why we shot it, though. We shot it because we wanted him to express Todd Standing 100% unfiltered and largely unedited. We didn't do any clever shenanigans at all. We didn't need to. And so you get experiences in that environment, along with Larry Buzzle and all the team, which he wouldn't call a team, but the owner, the proprietor of the Shaman Shack, gracious hosts, him and his wife, Anelia Benz, who we're going to talk about as well, because she was in part 2 as well. But do you want to go through the comments of Todd or Shaman Shack part 1?
Yeah. From Eva Deludis, in my very humble opinion, Sasquatch are using science we just don't understand yet. There are far too many witness and video cases of orbs in relation to these incredible beings. And though I don't believe Sasquatch are turning into orbs, I do believe that they have mastered the ability to use energy in ways we haven't yet been able to explain. Robert of Swan Lake Bigfoot has captured footage of Bigfoot with balls of light on the top of their heads. He's also theorized that because of his own experiences with physical symptoms when around bigger groups of them, part of the reason for Bigfoot avoiding human contact is to protect us from the energy they emit. I feel the study of quantum physics will continue to answer the many mysteries they pose.
Well, and we asked Todd, too, about what he thinks about orbs in connection with Bigfoot. He's not a fan of the subject matter and sees no reason to discuss it any further. Got that on camera. But I should mention, too, and it's not in what you just mentioned here with the comments, but that we found a bear den also in this episode. And I'd never really seen one up close. It turns out to be a pretty cool thing. Kind of, I called it wrong at first. I thought we were looking at maybe like an elk bedding area, something like that. The poop that you discovered. Sorry, I got to do this
pellets.
right. The poop that you discovered. I was looking for pellets, and these bear poops that we saw didn't look like the horse plops that I'd seen before. But this was after they came out of like their pseudo hibernation, and they were filled with just like black stools, right? A lot of poop talk happening in this episode. If you want more of that, comment below. All right, next.
Okay. So, part 2. Let's just get into part 2.
Okay, so part 2, same episode.
Shaman Shack.
Basically, Shaman Shack Day 2. Now, we should mention that by now, between Shaman Shack 1 and 2, Allie and I stay the night out in the woods till like 4 in the morning because we got something on tape. And we get into it. I don't remember if it's part 1 or I think it's part 2.
You hint that we captured the recording in the end of part 1, and then we'll dive into the recording in the night visit.
What in the hell do you think we'll talk about Anelia here in a second here, but what did you think about what we recorded on audio?
It just sounded like something like just almost emotionally venting in a way. Like sometimes it sounded more, what'd you call it, like nagging or like
a naggy tone.
And then other times it sounded like happy and playful, and then other times it kind of sounded like it was potentially mimicking other types of calls. I don't know.
And
it was all over the place.
It sounds female to me. It sounds like I hear language in parts of it. Like there's what you would call a morphine stream, or like I don't know, like a tone to it that is totally different on spectrogram than a coyote or anything natural.
It's not a coyote at all. And also there's a lot more to the audio than what we just shared. We kind of just shared some of the highlights, but.
And nobody took us to task with that audio as it being like, well, that is a coyote and I'm a big woodsman and this is why it's a coyote. No one really did that. As far as I can tell in the comments. What did they do?
I think some people were trying to guess if, I think someone might have said coyote.
Well, it wasn't no coyote.
I don't think it was a coyote.
We should probably mention the other part of the story here, not only the audio here, but Larry's wife, author Anelia Benz, who we had to get on camera because she's a known quantity in wisdom keeping. That's how she titles herself, as a wisdom keeper. And she said, we're wisdom keepers too, Allie.
We are?
That we're keeping the wisdom. And so we interview her out where we got this audio clip. And it's a beautiful summer day, and it's this very picturesque. Then she drops a bomb, because I haven't read all her books. She got like 9 or 12 books. And she had a book that she wrote kind of like as a fictional account about a real event, which happens a lot, by the way, about her life, and basically like MK Ultra as like a childhood 11, right? Like she had abilities and she was weaponized through the British government, it sounds like.
Yeah, check it out.
It's a lot.
You better check it out.
Check it out. And she never talked about that, by the way, on camera. Yeah, according to Larry, that's the first time she's ever talked about it publicly as her story. Yeah. And so thank you for doing that. And what she said made a lot of sense as far as like this news story about the psionics of finding people in other countries and bringing them to intel programs to exploit their psychic abilities long term. So anyway, interesting, fascinating episode. What's the next one here? We're closing to the end here shortly.
This is the Owl Moon Lab, episode 13.
Well, special thanks, first of all, to Jeff Niddle and his lovely lady in his life, Teresa, who invited us to come down to their metaphysical shop in historic Port Townsend, Washington, and basically set up shop in this really beautiful historic space in Undertown. It's like, I always think of like the scene out of Gremlins when the father goes down to buy Gizmo and he has to like go to this little rickety shop in San Francisco, I think, and get this weird little, it's that kind of shop. Like it's got the vibe. There we were in the shop talking about this strange and wonderful place called the Owl Moon Lab. And I thought, well, what the heck? Let's just tell the full story as a presentation one last time, perhaps, and see if we can make an episode out of it. And we did. So, you picking up on any vibes here? There was a witness that saw a Sasquatch run through the field. Not through this particular area, but there have been like Memorial Day style Sasquatch sightings. And we are all alone here, by the way. Like there is traffic up here and there are tourists, but we can't hear anyone and no one has walked by.
No, but I looked over there because I thought I heard a voice.
Okay. So. If you haven't read the book, now you can watch the presentation in beautiful 4K with Allie's super duper Sony camera. And so we're going to be using that camera down in Sacred Portal to film future episodes with presenters, new, and some of them you heard of before. Look forward to that.
So we are on episode 15.
The Red Gate.
The Red Gate.
Okay. I'm going to sit back here. Tell me what you thought of this episode and what it's about.
We were talking about the colors of the gates and how, based off of a podcast of a guy named Kyle.
Yes, Mr. X himself, yeah.
Kind of informed you guys about the red color having meaning behind, like, that area or location having more disruptive or potentially aggressive Bigfoots. You knew of one. We've been wanting to go to it since I've been up here. And then it ended up being like a short trail that led to a longer trail. I still think maybe we could experience some interesting stuff if we were able to get up higher.
Yeah, so we were stopped short in the video. You'll see that I turned the car around because of boulders in the road. And but that road just keeps going. And at one time it was locked. And at one time the gate was yellow. And it was painted quickly, bright cherry red, years ago. And so there's a side road. And we spend the day up there. We do a bunch of little experiments, including call blasting, which I usually don't do. But we had some interesting sounds, including the one from Shaman Shack. And I wanted to see what happened. And then you find on top of the hill this crazy thing that looks like a giant dragon, bronze dragon, like marker implanted on top of this hill.
Also, we know that it's a fake footprint for the record.
Yeah, right.
To whoever commented that.
I'm pretty sure this is real, Allie. I can tell. I'm going to do an eDNA swab off of it. So what do you think of that? And well, let's give people an update, because first of all, we didn't ever release the audio from there because A, there wasn't a lot going on, but B, this recorder I got off of Amazon is a POS, and it is not syncing to the computer. Now, that's the problem. It's a technical issue with reviewing. Also, we found out something about the marker. What's the latest with this dragon marker?
It's a part of a geocache situation.
From like the early 90s, like there's 12 of these bronze dragon feet hidden out in the Olympic Peninsula. And as you geocache, you're steered to different areas and discover like the geology to study mountains like this and the grassy valley like that. So it's pretty wild. We weren't expecting that. Neither was the park ranger I talked to that I showed the impression to. I had no idea what it was about. Neither did any of the townspeople. So a mystery pretty much solved, but you found out the dragons in the Olympics actually, like an oral tradition through First Nations people in particular.
Yeah.
There's like a thing, and it's not Thunderbirds. Like,
No.
people have seen these.
And it was, I just put the state of Washington. I didn't say the area we were in. And every single area except for maybe one was like all in the cluster up here in the Olympic Peninsula area. Yeah. So it was like places we've already been going and shooting episodes at. So that was interesting. Like
5 miles down the road, there's dragon lore to like a lake that we just went to. And it's just like, what? That lake? It's crazy.
In a town we live next to?
In a town we live next to, yeah. So, yes, a geocache. But why a geocache? Maybe there's something happening.
Christian Munaz, 2098. You mentioned gates that are white, green, yellow, and red. Does each color mean something? Excluding the red, of course, from the conversation with the person who remains to be unidentified. Well, that's Kyle, by the way. Interested in the follow-up video to see if you picked up any sounds. Thank you for going beyond the red gate.
Ooh, I like that. Beyond the red gate. That's a future episode.
I haven't heard... It would make sense for the other colors to have other meanings, but...
They have to, right? Like Weyerhaeuser has their color, BLM, Army Corps. They're fire gates, like the big, steel ones that you see blocking all the roads now because people are trashing them. Well, maybe it's not just trash. Maybe there's something bigger up there. And in this case, what do we call them? Problem children, Bigfoot. That's kind of the theory. All right, well, this is the last episode I put up there. Again, it was an archived episode. Allie was out of town, and I didn't really want to film without her. We had an interview fall through. And so because of copyright issues in the beginning when I started this, you can see snow on the ground, is actually shot back in February, I believe, of this year. I shot an episode with a gal by the name of Claire Manis entitled Mega, talking about a mastodon discovery in territory a lot more simple than this. It was actually a farmer's field out near Sequim, Washington, and it was just her husband out there with a backhoe digging a pond, and I'll be damned if he didn't discover like elephant tusks. That's what he thought he had. And as Claire says at the beginning of the episode, so what do you do when you find a couple of tusks in your backyard? You call your wife. And so that's what he did. He called his wife, and the rest is history. And you can go see these and this incredible. And some of you have made a comment like, why are you putting this up there? It's not Bigfoot related, and it's not paranormal, and it's probably not weird enough for your taste. But listen, here's the deal, is that this is a big find. It's an archaeological find, and the part that, because of the copyright music in there, I had to cut this part. There actually was an arrowhead found in the rib bone of the mastodon that was carved from a mastodon. So I believe it's called a Clovis point. That was the only kind of arrowhead that they were finding in mastodon and woolly mammoths, like megafauna, right? And so that's just like flint or obsidian or stone carved into a point. This, however, was a mastodon bone or tusk that was found in the rib of this find. So that means that they were like working on different types of hunting ways and theories. So pretty remarkable find. And it wasn't the only mastodon find going on at that time. There was actually another one happening out near Shaman Shack, actually.
Really?
Yes. And so that archaeologist came out to Squim, like dropped everything. And I think over 77,000 people came to this little gal's house over a period of like 2 years to tour the property. So it was a big deal out here. And you can go see the bones. And they're on display here in Squim, Washington at the Historical Museum. The actual tusk are like in a fish tank. You can see that in the footage. To preserve them, I guess that's what you do, is keep them in water. And so thank you to Claire for coming out and spending the afternoon with me doing that. Allie wasn't around for that episode, so you weren't there, didn't get a chance to meet Claire, but maybe someday.
No, but somehow I ended up with a piece of mastodon bone.
Oh, that's so crazy. Is a couple weeks ago, we find that there is like archaeological evidence in our town. This random guy with his hands behind his back, like wanders up on the beach and like, yes, this is like a mastodon tusk and they've protected it up here, but look at this. Yeah. And he picks up like this random piece of real obvious like tusker bone and go here and like hands it to her. It was so crazy. Yeah. Allegedly, we got a tusk, right?
Well, and this is stuff that had just fallen. It wasn't like we were digging into their project or anything.
No.
It was right on the edge. But pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
So anyway, that was our last episode. And so what's coming up in the future? Well, you can expect more of the same, maybe longer ones, maybe shorter ones. Maybe we'll shoot one right now. We don't know it's off that ledge. You know, we could just take our packs and head out and film right now. However, something tells me that there might be going on more at Sacred Portal as far as like long form interviews with audience interactions. We have some stuff that we want to do that will really throw a curveball to the audience as far as like who's on camera, what are they about to do, some real surprises coming up. So maybe we can make ourselves available in the Redwoods as well to follow up on werewolves with our last guest. So anyway, it's been fun having you along for the ride here. I'm so glad that she's up in the Olympics experiencing all this craziness with me. So anyway,
it's beautiful.
I thought it was a good time to do it. We should probably show people this view.
Yeah.
Let's walk them around. We can't venture too far over that way. There's a park ranger who doesn't like us to venture off too far, but as you can see here, look at that. There's the deers over there checking us out. So again, Hurricane Ridge gets really snowy up here in the winter. Anyway, that's the end of a summation of comments and basically like the best of the last 15. So stay tuned for more. And you know, I usually say I'll see you in the trees, but in this case, I'll see you in the mountains. That's it for now.